Okay. First of all, I'm gonna sound like this because I went to the game today. So just bear with me. It's gotten a lot better within the last couple of hours. I couldn't talk at a certain point. But hopefully the squeakiness starts to fade during this video. Second of all, welcome back. It was a nice bye week, even though every AFC North team won in that bye week. That sucked. And certain people were still employed on this organization during the bye week. So we kind of took an L, but it was nice to – I still worried about Steeler football, but not worry about, like, Steeler football, you know? I was at the game today, which I'm going to talk about the game. Watching it in person is obviously, like, very different than watching it on TV. You miss things on TV that you wouldn't see in person, that you would see in person, and you miss things in person that you would see on TV. It's really interesting, especially when you're technically the away team. Shout out Steelers fans, Steelers Nation. Like, this was a home game for the Steelers, but with it being an away game for us, the Rams were very hesitant to show us a lot of replays that would have gone Pittsburgh's way, which makes sense. When you're the home team, you don't want to rile up the away fan base, even though we were already owning it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the game. First thing, I know everyone wants to hear about it because the biggest talking point of this game is the 4th and 1. Kenny didn't get it. I'm going to be completely honest on that play. Kenny was very, very well short. I couldn't see because when you get into a scrum and you're in the stands, you can't see what happened. And the Rams, like I said, they weren't really showing the replay. And so all I saw is they brought the chains out and they showed that they got it. And I was like, cool, they got it. And when I was leaving the stadium, while I was waiting for traffic to kind of clear out, I was watching highlights on my phone, and I was curious because that play was trending on Twitter. And, Kenny did not get it. But also, I don't feel like that's what won this game for the Steelers or lost it for the Rams, because the refs in this game, I have not really complained about the refs too much this season in these videos, if at all. Maybe like an occasional not at them or a shot at them. But this game was so bad for the Steelers, guys. Like, again, I don't know what it was like with broadcasting. With broadcasting, you get replays on all the unsportsmanlike conducts and stuff, and the taunting penalties, which were horrible. I didn't see replays, so I'm going to go back and make sure to rewatch those. So maybe I'm wrong, but at least in person when they showed the replays once, it didn't seem like the refs were horrible in this game. There were some really bad defensive holdings, I think, called on Pittsburgh. There were a lot of missed holding penalties on the Rams. So the reason I'm saying this is because, for instance, on that drive where the 4th and 1 happened, there was a play where I think we threw it to Deontay on a comeback, and it got us a first down on 3rd and 7. I think it's that exact same series, essentially. So we'd gotten the first, and Deontay got us the first, and that was going to essentially get us down to the 2-minute warning. But then Deontay got called for taunting, and it set us back because it was offsetting, because it was pass interference. Oh, Deontay didn't catch it. It was pass interference. And so, the Steelers fans were going wild because we thought, okay, cool, that's going to seal the game, get us the first down. But then Deontay got taunting, essentially negating the first down and getting us into that 4th and 1 situation. So I think that they all canceled out. Maybe the refs were like, yeah, we technically blew that last call. The refs were horrible in this game. So I don't think that's the factor that won the Steelers the game and lost the Rams that game. So there's that. Nextly, I guess I'll talk about the offense first. I don't get it. We have a week off and we come out looking slow and looking the exact same. Something that I really wish I'd never seen in person is a Matt Canada motion offense. It's the worst. Oh, I got to see a lovely 3rd and 17 screenplay in person. That's so fun to watch in person. But the offense hasn't changed. What has changed is Kenny's decision making. There's a lot more plays down the middle of the field, and I think a big part of that is now with Deontay being back. The defense doesn't have to just take accountability. That's where the Steelers, I will say, we're not getting enough credit with George Pickens, is when he started to come along while Deontay was hurt, every defense was just going to guard George Pickens because that was our primary guy. And it was working because Allen Robinson has been a non-factor. Calvin Austin had that one touchdown in week 2, or I think it was week 3, actually, against the Raiders. But with Deontay back, the defenses are going to have to respect both of those players. And, George clearly – Deontay still had – I think it was 79 yards. So George had 80 yards. Deontay had 80 yards, and George had 107, I think. And George is a fucking monster, man. He's got a little bit of a temper thing. Oh, that was the other play that was horrible, was the blindside block. That was a bad call. But, yeah, so I think with Deontay coming back, they're not just going to use George on the seam, which I was really worried about because that's how they used George last year. Last year, George was literally just like a seam and a streak guy, and that was it. This time, they're getting to the middle of the field. They are still using him on the outside. I wish it wasn't how – okay, actually, now I'm thinking about it, they are still using him as a seam guy, but they need to be using him more how I think it was the final drive when Kenny – it was up the seam. Okay, well, maybe I don't like what they're doing to George. But – with Deontay coming back, essentially, it's opening up the game for George and opening the game for Kenny. So I think that's going to be a really good thing. Speaking of Kenny, I'm a huge Kenny defender. I think that Kenny, his plateau and lack of a progression from last season is a huge part of Matt Canada being his offensive coordinator. One of my favorite comps that I've kind of come up with for Kenny is currently, to me, what pre-Tua was, where you'd see flashes, what Tua was, Kenny currently is what Tua was pre-Mike McDaniel is what I meant to say. Where you'd see a couple flashes, you're like, oh, there's a good quarterback in there. But then essentially you'd be like, is this the guy? Like, how often were we talking about is Tua the guy for the Dolphins? And in the last 2 seasons, he's been the MVP conversation. So, and they're currently playing right now, so I don't know how they're doing. But that's what Kenny reminds me of. So that being said, even though I have been somewhat of a Kenny defender, he loves to do the spin rollout, which is a really good move if you're using it properly, and Kenny tends to just panic into it. I got to see that in person. I thought maybe people were overreacting to it because I have seen people talk about it in the past couple weeks. But seeing it in person, he does tend to be. He didn't bail out as much this game, but he still does it, and it is kind of a detriment. I wonder if the Ravens game last year where he did it and it worked is one of the reasons why he keeps doing it, because it worked for him once in a very clutch situation. So there's that. Speaking of the offense, Najee had a great game. The blocking was still really bad, and the blocking I am not going to blame on the offensive line for the rest of the season. I'm being completely honest. If you guys haven't seen, Kevin Dotson and why can't I think of his name? Green. Number 53. We drafted him in the 3rd round. Kendrick Green and Kevin Dotson. Kevin Dotson is currently, I think, the highest rated guard in the NFL right now. Last year he was subpar rated. And Kendrick Green is, I think, middle of the pack. And last year he was ranked below the top 32, meaning he's worse than current starters, every starter. So it's showing that coaching really does matter on this offensive line. So I am giving the offensive line a free pass until the end of this season. I mean, unless, of course, it's blatant. But the lack of holes, I think, is just schematics. And it's going to be a long season, man. We'll talk about it. Najee looked better. Jalen Warren looked great, as usual. It looks like it's going to be a basically perfectly 50-50 split. Okay, one thing, seeing Najee in person, he really is so fucking unnecessarily patient, and he dances way too much. That's the difference between him and Jalen. Jalen just shoots into the hole, and it's great. Najee, there's a hole, but he's overthinking it every time, and I feel like Najee would be getting way more yards per carry if he wasn't overthinking it. So there's that. I talked about George and Deontay. I don't know why we're using a 3rd round pick to draft a tight end that we're not going to use. Oh, speaking of drafting, lucky my voice is gone because I don't know why the fuck we're not playing Broderick Jones. Don't get me started on why. Why would you spend a 1st round pick? Not even spend. You traded up for this guy. You were like, this is our guy. And then he fucking balled out against one of the best we've seen now that Baltimore is an elite defense. That's what they did to the Lions today. He balled out against that defense, and you put him back on the bench. And I know that Mike Tomlin has this thing where he doesn't want a starter to lose their job due to injury. But if you're putting in the worst player, guess what you're going to do? You're going to create injury. That's just the reality situation. I don't think Dan Moore had a bad game today, but just Broderick Jones looked like a completely different level whenever he's playing. So there's that. Yeah, I don't know why we spent a 3rd round pick on a tight end that we're not going to ever target. That's really annoying. Speaking of 3rd rounders, Nick Herbig got a lot of snaps today. There were a couple times today where neither TJ nor Alex Highsmith were on the field, and I was very confused and a little concerned. And that's going to get me to the defense here. Like, I'm excited to talk about the defense. So that's mainly the offense. Oh, also, I just don't understand why in the fourth quarter, why we can't do that for the rest of the game. Not only as a team, but also Kenny. But I do understand there's one major thing, and that's we do use the no huddle a lot more in the fourth quarter, which, if you know what that essentially means, it means that the offensive coordinator doesn't have time to set up a scheme or set up, a series of plays that they want to script in a way that they're hoping to work best, which means Matt Canada is not controlling the offense when we're doing no huddle, and Kenny is. Kenny's, someone who's seeing the field. So that's a huge element, and it just shows me that Matt Canada is not cut out to be an offensive coordinator. Also, this is going to sound weird coming from me. I'm kind of over all the fire Canada things. I feel bad for the guy, actually. Listen, I still think he's a horrible employee. You can be a great person, but a horrible employee. But, like, seeing people at the Capitol, not like of Pittsburgh or of Pennsylvania, like of the nation, with fire Matt Canada signs and chanting Matt Canada. Like, at this point, all you're doing is kind of harming the man and his family, and you're leaving a bad taste in his mouth. And honestly, he's probably going to have a shit ton of trauma because we're in week 7. We've played 6 games, and probably 6 out of those 6, he's heard 30 to 40,000 people every week. No, you're going to step on my computer. Sorry, my cat. He's heard 30 to 40,000 people tell him that he sucks at his job, and that can't really do well on a man's psyche. So I'm over it. I won't lie. There were times today I wanted to chant Matt Canada like really loud one to break out so I could join, but that's just frustration. And it still sucks. I feel bad for the man. Anyways, that's Matt Canada. I also think he should have been fired. I also think the Steelers were doing a disservice to him by keeping him employed because, like I said, all you're doing at this point by keeping him employed is, 1, angering fans, and 2, those fans are just pulling out all their hatred on the poor guy, and I feel bad. As someone who has done that, it's just it's got to relax. It's not going to because I know this fan base, but, defense. Yeah, Puka Nacua had, 10 receptions for 158 yards? I don't care. That's their wide receiver, too. Guess what Cooper Kupp had? He had 2 receptions for 40 yards. No, he didn't. He had 2 receptions for 20 yards and 2-point conversion. I will take that. Tyler Higbee, nothing. You're telling me that most 75, 80% of Matthew Stafford's yards went to the rookie? I'm not discounting Puka Nacua. He's a phenomenal receiver. I think he's a top 15 receiver right now in the NFL. Yeah, I said it. But yeah, I was more worried about what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were going to do, not just Puka Nacua. So I'm very happy with that. Also, our run game needs to get it together because we had a man who was unemployed 2 weeks ago running down our throats. So that's not good. But then there were also a lot of just bad defensive calls by the refs on us. Also got to see JPJ in action. He was phenomenal, except for one play. I think he was manned up on Puka Nacua on a 3rd and long, I believe, and Nacua ran an in route, and Joey literally went the other way, and I was like, ooh, that's a bad look, Joey. So, but other than that, that's his first bad look, in my opinion, that he's had so far. So, but Levi Wallace allowing that touchdown right before halftime, it's just, you've got Patrick Peterson's just slow. It's not worth it at this point. You're just hurting the team. I hadn't even talked about TJ Watt. TJ Watt's still the defensive player of the year. He almost had a pick six. I feel like if TJ got that pick 6, that would have just locked in his DPOY consideration for the year because he's just going to continue to get better. He didn't have a sack, unfortunately, but he only has 8 sacks. He only has 8 sacks in 6 games played. Whoa. Where defense is going to get Cam Hayward back too. The pass rush I don't have a issue with, and neither does Mike Tomlin because, like I said, there were long periods where Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt were not on the field. But I'm not worried about the pass rush, and the only elements of the secondary I'm not worried about are Minka and JPJ. Everything else is still a little sus, which means our corner 1 and 2 and our strong safety situation. Also, a lot of people are complaining about Minka not having interceptions. That's a good thing. That means people aren't throwing at him. That's what we want. So I'm not going to look into that too much. This is just a game, like, it's hard. It's really hard to judge the Steelers because I didn't see anything that I loved, and I saw a lot of what I didn't like, and I also just saw a lot of the same. There was nothing new, and that sucks because this is a team that all bye week, and I'm getting sick of hearing it as a fan, all bye week they're talking about, yeah, we had meetings about what we're going to change and this and that and the other, and it looks like the exact same offense. I know we won. I know we're 4-2. Fucking how? The fact, and the two losses are blowouts. One by arguably the best team in the NFL, and the other by arguably the best up-and-coming team in the NFL. I still can't believe that Houston game, man. Man, if we could just get it together, we'd be 5-1. And oh my goodness. But yeah, we're 4-2 and leading the division. How? Oh no, we're not because of the bye. So we're in second division. How? I don't get it. I don't know who we play next week. Let me see. Sorry. I don't have as much energy. I'm exhausted, you guys. Like, walking around in the sun all day and just yelling all day, it really does just completely take it out of you. So we have the Jags and the Titans, which I shouldn't worry about, but they have a great run defense. Not that our run game is good, but that means we can't play action. And then the Packers and the Browns and the Bengals. That's a really rough 5-game stretch. And then we have the Cardinals and the Patriots and the Colts. So 5-game stretch into a 3-game easier stretch. I don't know. This is a team that in my mind is probably going to finish 9-8, which sucks because I really don't want another 15th overall pick that we're never going to play. But, yeah, those are my thoughts for this week. Sorry, there's not more. Honestly, I feel like watching the game is easier for me to gather my thoughts. I mean, honestly, whenever I'm watching the game at home, I usually have a notepad and I'm writing everything down, my thoughts. When you're at the game, you're still invested, but, there's people around you that you want to interact with. And you want to have a good time. And I was with my family, too. So they came out for the game, which was nice. It was awesome to have them there. Even though there was a really long point in this game where I had my terrible towel over my head, and I was just like, cool, this game's over. Anyways, yeah, I'm not going to kind of blabber too much. I'll probably talk about it on the podcast this week. Sorry we didn't have a podcast last week, and Zach's Wi-Fi is not working. The gods are really testing us to see if we're going to stick with the podcast, but we are, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, so other than that, I'd love to talk a little bit longer. I see I've already been going for about 17 minutes, and I'm really out of energy. I'm going to clip this together and upload it and go to bed probably. So I am curious your guys' thoughts, though, Steelers fans or not. Yeah, and then make sure to check out the podcast. I almost forgot. The podcast, Mega Casuals Podcast, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube as well. Sorry, guys. I usually have way more energy at the end of these, but you know how these end. I'm just going to see you guys. I'll talk to you guys later, and